2. Hey, this is Johnny. How's it growing? I'm here with Dr. Michelle Pero. She is a pediatrician with 40 years of experience, a CEO of GMO Science, and a author of What's Making Our Children Sick. She's an expert on GMOs, pesticides, and children's health. Welcome, Dr. Pero. How are you doing today?
Johnny, thank you for having me. And please, Michelle.
All right, all right. Yeah, thank you for joining. It's just crazy some of these challenges that we're seeing. This mRNA technology. Thankfully, we're discussing. A lot of these projects have had their funding cut from the government, so this is a good step in the right direction. And but yeah, this mRNA, this is just GMOs on steroids, isn't it?
Well, I never thought I'd be doing this. It's not exactly what I was trained to do. And I think for most people, genetics is sort of this weird science course that they never took in high school or college. But it is the driving force of what we're eating. They've genetically modified our food. They've genetically modified vaccines, which they're not. They're genetic immunomodulators. They now want to genetically modify plants to produce vaccines, and they want to create inhaled mRNA technology. So this genetic modification of who we are is somewhat, not somewhat, extremely concerning. And everyone has to become aware in language that we can all understand. We can take a complicated subject, Johnny, and simplify it so that an 8-year-old can understand it.
Yeah, here. Right. So, I got a background in software, and, the analogy I tell people is, you can change one line of code and the whole thing can go sideways, and you might not realize it for a while. It might be weeks later you realize, oh man, that thing we did way back when, that's causing all these issues. And, for the GMOs for our like corn that we're eating, they don't test these. They just say they're equivocally similar. So, there's no safety testing. Looks like a corn, tastes like a corn, just as safe as a corn. Where that's so crazy. And now the mRNA tech, they just want us all to be their guinea pigs.
Well,
Is that
you're
right?
to this analogy toward engineering, and a lot of people think of that genetics as just a line of code. We're just a series of programmable information, bits of data that you can swap in and out. But this is what CRISPR is all about, which is literally GMOs 2.0. It's called CRISPR, and so CRISPR. And so as they remove little segments and they use these little genetic scissors to cut out pieces they don't want or put in new information, they say this is precise technology. There's nothing precise about it. There is a process called chromatopsis where the genes re-regulate themselves and kind of like scramble to put themselves back together. And every time they do this, it may not be the exact way that they thought it was going to happen. There's downstream mixing up of genetic sequences that produce novel new proteins that we have never seen before. What happens when our bodies see these new proteins, we see them as foreign invaders and we mount an immune response. So that can drive something called chronic inflammation. Not to mention some of these new products can be, other than being novel, can be incredibly toxic to us. So this is a scramble and a gamble of our lives. This genetic engineering process, which is unchecked, unregulated, a corporate free for all. It's a patent grab where every company is grabbing to put these little new patents in place so they can have the market on this technology and make lots of money.
Right. And you talk about patents, it's so crazy. The farmers should have been suing Monsanto for getting their GMO or their corn compromised by this GMO genetics, which is, like you said, untested and no good. A lot of people don't want it. But instead, we saw Monsanto suing the farmers, and a lot of times these farmers, their crops were, just compromised by cross pollination, just something that's very natural. And it's like, who are you to patent, the corn product? This is something Vandana Shiva has brought up that Bill Gates is bankrolled a lot of these seed banks now. And what they're doing there is they're patenting these genetics, and they're saying, hey, look, we altered this, we did something special here. And at the point, it's like, control group, like what was the original? They're taking what's nat in the labs that are unique when that's just not so.
Indeed, there's so many comments I can make about this, your point, and without giving a whole history lesson of GMOs. But there isn't a lot of health research on GMOs, and people don't know that the original study of the original scientist, his name is Dr. Arpad Pusti, when he tested those GMO potatoes in 1996 and published his data, he thought they would be fine, and he showed absolute 100% harm in the gut, reproductive organs, immunology of rats. And when he published his data, and he came out as a hero in the UK for 2 days, until the BBC got a call from Bill Clinton to Tony Blair, and they shut him down and fired him. Now, what's important about that, well, he had a heart attack, but he recovered. And then years later, he and a researcher named Dr. Ignacio Chapella from UC Berkeley, here in my neck of the woods, they did a movie together called Scientists Under Attack. The reason, and what Dr. Chapella showed, Berkeley tried to get rid of him 3 times. They lost all 3 times. Was that corn could travel 1,000 miles away. So our GMO corn could indeed infect, the heirloom variety of corn. Corn is king in Mexico, 1,000 miles away. And so what we have seen is obfuscation of science, the takedown of scientists who report harm or any kind of information. It's just been horrific. Careers ruined, media attacks, coordinated media attacks, ruining people's careers, reputations, families, or even worse than that, death. It's horrific. So this is what's going on, trying to get the truth out. Now that's what we know about it, and very few human studies afterwards. What you have to do to the plant to get it to uptake this genetic modification, and the only reason why we're eating GMO corn is so when they spray Roundup, which is a glyphosate-based herbicide, the corn doesn't die, just the weeds around it. That's the only reason why you're eating it. They're not nutritionally equivalent. They say that they're given GRAS status, generally recognized as safe by the FDA and EPA and the USDA. It's all good. It's not. And they don't have the same nutrient density, and the plants are weaker. And you have to do all kinds of things to the plant to get them to take up these new genetic traits. When they have fields of GMO corn planted next to conventionally grown corn, or organic should be conventional corn, animals will fly over the GMO corn and not eat it and eat the other corn, normal, beautiful corn. So that we have tons of examples like this, and I've been looking at this for literally decades, Johnny. But the problem is, what they didn't tell you when they introduced the GMOs, most of our health is derived from a microbiome. Our microbes are those little microbes. We have probably over 700 different species of microbes in our gut. There should be more, that dictate immune function. Those GMOs are promiscuous little buggers. Those organisms, those microbes have bacterial sex with our microbes, and they swap little bits of DNA called plasmids. So now we are creating new microbes that are unidentified in our guts. Health impacts, we don't know. And so we have all these unidentified new organisms, but we now could be patented by Monsanto now, Bayer, because we are genetically modified. And because in 2016, our government passed the DART Act, deny Americans the right to know whether your food is labeled or not. We don't know if our food is labeled, modified, because they said no labeling. That's not allowed, because Vermont was the first successful state to pass a labeling law, and they got rid of that really quick. They don't want us to know what we're eating. 90% of Americans, and I'll speak to Americans, do not want to eat GMOs. So what did the companies do with the government's assistance? They changed the name from GMOs to Symbio, bioengineered, all these more acceptable names, that this is technology, bioengineered, the better living through science, better living through chemistry. You're anti-science if you question this. So this is a coordinated attack through linguistic gymnastics to get us to eat a product line which is shown to cause harm. And it's gotten worse since then. And they've advanced the technology further, which we can get into.
That's incredible. Yeah, these linguistics that they go through. And yeah, you talk about that study getting retracted. They did the same thing to Seralini. He showed that the GMOs without the glyphosate, just the GMO corn, was causing tumors in the rats. And they got that study retracted. Meanwhile, we've caught Monsanto fabricating their science, and there's still 5 studies that are cited by the EPA of why GMOs allegedly don't cause cancer, or at least glyphosate doesn't cause cancer, and these studies still remain there. They go unretracted. So yeah, we've got a real problem with our body of peer-reviewed science where it's been polluted, hasn't it?
So I think it'd be important for me to mention what's happening right now, because Monsanto knew in 1983 that their product glyphosate caused cancer. And when they submitted their specimens to the EPA samples by the EPA pathologist at the time showed that they caused kidney cancer. And then what happened was, what they did was got rid of the pathologist, brought their own pathologist, and they said, oh, no, it's fine. And up it got, it's smooth sailing. So they knew for 40 years now that their product caused cancer. That would be criminal. But what's happening right now is that there is something called the Pesticide Liability Shield that passed the Appropriations Committee, is heading to the House for a vote, and looks like it can win, that would give big ag industry protection against lawsuits for their toxic products, very similar to the vaccine protection shield called the NVIC that was passed in 1986 under President Reagan. So industry, big ag, is about to get a pass for their cancer-causing chemicals. And this shows you the collusion, the corruption, the cronyism, the lobbyist hold on our legislators. Because if this thing passes, and we've been fighting, I wrote a new article about it, just published 2 days ago. Everyone needs to know and complain, like, we cannot give these guys a pass. They're killing us. We need to go back to organic regenerative farming. It can be done. People teach the courses on how to do it, and farmers need to revert, and we support them. We support conventional farming with GMOs and pesticides. We can support organic regenerative farmers. This is coming from big ag. And so this is happening literally right now, Johnny.
Yeah, a lot of us have been making calls. Great to call just everybody in the House, especially our Republicans, our conservatives are on the wrong side of this one. And then in the Senate, I understand this might be getting into their appropriations bill. So if anybody would like to call, there's just a list of about 20 Republican senators on that appropriations committee that we can call and voice our concern. This should, I think I read a poll, like 87% of Republicans don't want to see this happen. So this is against the will of the people. And it just doesn't make any sense, no matter what persuasion of the spectrum you're on. But, to a conservative, this is a national security threat, right? This is being pushed by the likes of China, of ChemChina, pushed by the likes of Bayer, owned by, it's a German company. These pesticides are, maybe the number one culprit for our fertility rates cratering. 1% every year we're losing, and our kids' hormones all out of whack. All of ours really. These endocrine disruptors are affecting everyone. And so for some of these conservatives standing up for our kids against the so-called gender affirming care, this really dovetails with that. This is what I believe is the reason that they're pushing some of that agenda is as a cover for what these chemicals are doing for us. So and we cannot cede our constitutional rights to stand up for ourselves when it matters most. It's just crazy.
200%. I couldn't agree more. And what people don't know is that when you couple these toxic pesticides, glyphosate, it's the most ubiquitous. And I think China is the world's producer of glyphosate, by the way. It's a synthetic amino acid. It gets into every part of our bodies. It disrupts, I counted 27 different chemical reactions in our bodies producing side effects. But glyphosate shuttles aluminum 6 different ways across the blood-brain barrier. Now, what are they doing? They're spraying us with aluminum via geoengineering. It's in our food. I study baby formula. The amounts of aluminum in infant formula was sky high. So glyphosate and aluminum, one of the leading neurotoxicants, it's neurologically horrific, work synergistically. Very few studies look at the effects of toxic pesticides. The average food contains 6, not just Roundup. Have toxic metals, which The average baby being born has 287 different chemicals. A lot of them are toxic metals, not to mention the phthalates, the solvents, and the other chemicals. So we are having, what I'm teaching parents and individuals now is how to do a daily detox, but that's not enough. We need to fight the source. I can tell you how to detox all day long, but you can't keep the barrage of bullets that keep flying at us as you daily detox. We have to go to the root cause and stop the source. And the source is in our government, in collusion with industry, big ag, big tele, big pharma. That's where it needs to stop. So this is why every human like you, here you are, engineer, software engineer, I am a pediatrician. We need, every voice matters. Every mom, every dad, every individual. We're talking about citizen scientists. We're talking about grassroots activism. We're talking about everyone getting off the couch. Somebody else can't do it for us. We all have to be in this battle, and it's a battle. They're not going to let go easily. There's a stronghold on our well-being. So this is what we're up against, Johnny.
It's just incredible, isn't it? How can it be so bad? How can we be, just begging to keep our rights? Like I said, this is the First Amendment right to get our grievances addressed. This is the Fifth Amendment right to due process. Our Seventh Amendment right to, we need a jury. We need a jury trial when we're harmed, and this is where it matters most. This is our kids who are the most vulnerable. All of us. Glyphosate has been, implicated in causing dozens of diseases to go parabolic. And, we've got thousands of studies that are peer reviewed about this. And, meanwhile, we've got this company, a German or a foreign owned company who has had to pay over $11 billion for causing cancer for homeowners, for Americans, spraying just Roundup in their gardens. Now this is on the food. It's being sprayed on the food at harvest, no longer just as a weed killer, but now used as a toxic desiccant, giving us more than 10x the exposure of other countries just for that process alone. And this isn't covered in the news. They've bought the media, right? They want to suppress this story. We're paying 3 times what every other country's paying for their health care, and we have the worst outcomes.
Not only that, I'll pivot a little bit. Not only that, but the kind of care that people need to dodge these chronic diseases is not in our present medical system. So Americans are buying insurance, which doesn't cover the care they need, because they need integrative holistic practitioners, which are not covered by insurance. As a matter of fact, we've been denigrated and vilified for decades. I am a holistic physician. I'm a homeopathist in training. I don't have my homeopathic degree up there because no one even knows what it is. Rockefellers have been after homeopathy since 1910. It didn't die. Thank you very much. So now Americans have to pay twice, and they can't afford it because holistic practitioners don't accept insurance. So people can't even get the help they need, because you really need to see someone out of the system, because the system, if you talk about the stuff that I talk about, will shut those physicians down. They can't do it. You write one medical exemption in the state of California and you'll lose your license. So they don't allow us to practice. It's not that many physicians are all cowards, although many are. I'm not in fond of my colleagues, many of them right now for many reasons. But to be able to exercise our voice and our ability to practice and in a holistic way has been handcuffed by pharma, by the medical industrial complex, and by insurance companies. The middleman has got us in a death grip. So to get to practice the way we need to practice, we need to lead the system, and then we're not covered by insurance. It's a really gnarly system.
It's just incredible, isn't it? A lot of people kind of getting over to doing prepay or like kind of group pay rather than the insurance companies taking their cut of their profits, paying with a group plan that has more coverages. But yeah, this is just the whole system seems to just get captured by these industry interests who are pushing their angles of a different way from profiting from us. I call Bayer cancer profiteers now, because they've got the dialectic going where they've bought Monsanto. Everybody asks, why did they buy Monsanto? They were already getting sued for this. They were already had these liabilities of billions of dollars coming. And I think the reason is that they wanted to keep their gravy train of the cancers that are caused by Monsanto, so that Bayer can profit from them. There's huge profits in chemotherapy. $10,000+ a treatment, and this is what we see happening when we allow this. It's just poison in our food, literally.
Indeed. So they win at both ends. They cause cancer and they produce the cancer treating drugs. The whole oncology industry, to me, is a huge medical wheel mafia. It's really kind of vile when I think about it. And without really understanding some of the root causes of cancer, I am not an oncologist, and I have tremendous empathy for those struggling with cancer, but understanding that we have only begun to touch upon the surface of what really causes cancer. And when people have come out with real treatments for cancer, they've been vilified, they have to leave the country, they've exited. We can't even say these words. And it began in the earth, like 100 years ago, with Dr. Royal Rife and the Rife machine. So when people have had successes treating cancers outside the pharma model, they literally have been exiled, if not murdered. So even talking, we're not even allowed to get our word out. If you get too close, you can have an unfortunate ending. I mean, this is criminal acts against scientists, physicians. That's why I think there's been a generation of such fearful practitioners, because for people who've gained a lot of notoriety, their careers, their lives have not ended so well, or they'll go after your family, a family mafia style. I mean, it's happened. We have examples of how this has happened. I remember one year, like 83 integrative practitioners all mysteriously died, thinking that, what is happening? There's no accountability for their actions. The criminals. I don't know who's doing what. I'm not privy to information, but it's, as a student of CSI, I read a lot of CSI mystery novels. They're all guilty till proven innocent. I know, not the American way. So we have some unraveling to do. And so what I've been educating people to do is to create a parallel system and exit the present system. I think it's so corrupt that it can't be fixed. And so we have to take care of our own health.
Yeah, that's why I go by Johnny Paradise. I like to tell people we got to plant paradise everywhere. Our favorite plants and animals, giving us everything we need locally: food, medicine, building materials, fuel even. And this is food purity, food security, and sovereignty. Independence, real freedom from this consumer system. So yeah, got to let the food be the medicine again, don't we?
Well, that's why I changed the tagline on my website, Educate to Regenerate, because what I decided to shift to is educating consumers how to gain back the knowledge that perhaps our grandparents once had, on how we this divine human knows what to do if we give it the right materials, which are the nutrients in our real food. The crap we're eating is not real food. So we have to go back and design, probably maybe to our grandparents, to figure out what it was, and kind of resurrect that knowledge that we once had. And the body has a divine sense of knowing how to heal itself. The immune system works on its own. And all these impediments of pesticides and metals and plastics are impairing our biology. So rather than pharmacizing, the symptoms that your body's trying to tell you there's a problem, is to get to the root cause and unravel it. And this is what I try and teach parents how to do with their own kids. I wrote another book, Making Our Children Well, not because I wanted to write another book, because the first one was so freaking painful, but because before I become compost out with my chickens, I thought I need to get this word out on how people do it, because to find integrative practitioners is not so easy. And to teach yourself how to do it there's some challenges. And if your kid is sick or you're sick, it's not like, oh, just change your diet. Well, sometimes that works. Yeah, right on. But sometimes it takes a lot more than that. And we have to bring in, various treatment modalities, herbs, supplements, homeopathics, etc., removing Wi-Fi, all the things that we do. So the road back to health can be complicated, but we can teach people how to do it. But the first thing, as you aptly said, is let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Hippocrates, right? And so that is what we practice. But we have to teach people. And because our Gen Zers and our millennials are so on the internet, and they're inundated with stuff, how they get the real stuff is hard. Just How do they ferret it out? Like who's legit and who isn't?
Yeah, my friend, he told me we're in a post-truth kind of era where, there's so much misinformation out there. And I said, no, 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 that's not true. It's easy to know who's who's lying. It's just I think, if it's an industry interests, you got to take it with a whole ocean's worth of salt. And if it's somebody standing against the established narrative, they're probably right. No, I'm not saying they're definitely right, but look into them, check on them, do your due diligence. But they're probably right because they're standing up against the bad guys. They're putting their career on the line. It's human nature that you don't want to walk outside of the norm to begin with. But then, you've got these huge industry interests, going after everybody who steps out of line. So if somebody is courageous enough to stand up, they're worth listening to. And what they're saying is going to be true most of the time.
There's definitely slings and arrows out there. It's not easy when you're sort of speaking truth and everybody else, and here you are with my mouthpiece and all the sheeple are over here speaking something else. There are personal attacks. You're excluded from society, and we are herd animals. You're ostracized professionally. Your career gets tanked. You don't get invited to this, that, on. It's sort of ubiquitous, the kind of ostracizing that community can do for the person who's speaking out. So it can be a lonely road. But what's happened is those of us who are speaking out, like you, like me, there's so many others, we are becoming the many. We're not the minority anymore. There are more and more of us on more and more platforms. And interestingly, our messages are very similar. We all don't have the same thing, and we don't have to fit hand in glove. Whoever said that? But there is similar messaging. And what we are talking about is medical freedom, medical autonomy, personal freedom, personal autonomy, and removing this diabolical digitalization of our souls. So we want to remove that oppressive, straitjacket that they are embracing upon us, these 15-minute cities, these telling us, dictating us with 72 vaccines for our children, how we will be in the world. That all has to go. And it is working, but it takes more of us. You can't just have a few of us. We have to become the many. And that's why I believe in grassroots activism. And that's why, Johnny, I try and activate every parent I know. Because for me, in my career, I've been practicing 43 years. The most powerful force I've ever seen in nature, more than that rattlesnake in my chicken coop today or the bobcat that jumped my fence, is a mom with children. It's a force of nature. That mama bear is a powerful force. So when a mom's children are being hurt, unleash her. And that's what they're fearing. That was what Maha was about. Bobby got in there because of women saying enough. Now, I don't exclude men from this category, but there's something inherent about the force of women and their children. So that is what I try to tap into. My own personal goal, and I say this unabashedly, is to piss off every woman in America to rise up for their own children. And with the corollary, their husbands, their partners, whatever, join in the battle. We'll be stronger when dads step up too. Dads have been taking a pass. And all those years I practiced, I rarely saw a dad in practice. Now I say, I won't even talk to a family unless dad, whoever's there, whoever the parents are, everyone's there. Mom, dad, grandparents, whoever's raising that kid. I want them all there. And because it's more powerful, I have found, when everyone joins in. And this is what we have to do. It's a battle for our children's lives. They want our children. And so this is what we're battling.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think that, mothers taking care of babies, especially infants, being so vulnerable. And then you got men, you got fathers on the other side, going out and just slugging through, and when things get rough, we just it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. So, I think you go back until the last 50, 100 years, nature was, good for us in general. It's compared to all the chemicals we're up against now, there wasn't so much to worry about. These forever chemicals that can get in our bloodstream, circle round and round, and cause all these issues and never get broken down, just build up over time. This is something that's brand new, that of all of our cultures, of all of our millennia of existence, we've never had to deal with. So, I think that we are in a new age where you got to be a lot more vigilant, and things are getting worse and worse faster. And now with, things like this liability shield taking our very rights from us. I mean, this is a suspension of rule of law where it matters most. This is the whole reason we have society and civilization, is to look out for one another. I
Mhm.
love the libertarian ideal that the government needs to be just big enough to protect us one from another. And this is failing at that very thing. This is sanctioning our genocide, literally, because they're choosing it. That's what makes it a genocide. We know, we have the science. These are people who are saying, listen, there's a right way to do this. We've got, I mean, how can anybody say that glyphosate's not causing cancer when there's 67,000 cases right now that they've had to settle already? This is just, it's unbelievable.
Well, you're so eloquently spoken, Johnny. You give me hope because, you're a young man speaking the truth. Really, you have a good grip of understanding of what is happening out there. And but what you're saying is it behooves each one of us to understand the lay of the land. Things have gotten more complicated. And I know a lot of people said, I don't want to hear it. I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. I've heard this. Like, I just want to, go to Grateful Dead shows and, go out and party and leave me alone. This is the California way. And okay, it's like people want to put their head in their sand. We can't activate everyone. So that gives me pause. But I think there are more people now in our camp who are of the mindset that we need to protect our freedoms going forward. And maybe perhaps it's libertarian. What we do know is that government has been corrupted. So we have to set it straight because we do live under a government. I know I've thought about leaving the country and setting up residence somewhere else because I'm in the California, communist country here. But I'd say, well, if I exit, then I leave California to all those people. And if we all exit, California will become exactly what it's becoming. So we have to just figure out a way how we continue this network. We build our network, we build our web, and we keep educating ourselves at whatever level, wherever we're at. But there is an ask here. The ask is everyone do something. This idea of just burying your head in the sand doesn't work anymore. We all have to become active. Now, not everyone's going to be doing a podcast. They're not all going to be doing holistic health like I do. But people get involved in their local towns, at their schools, in their own homes, their own families, in their own play groups, in their own friend groups, hosting dinners at their own homes, educating, and teaching and sharing and creating community around our issues. So there is no longer I don't want to know. No, we all have to know because it has hit every one of us. No one is immune now, especially. And my biggest alarm was 2 days ago. In Canada, they're about to release an inhaled mRNA vaccine. So coupled with that at McMaster University in Alberta, no, Toronto perhaps. I think it's Toronto. Anyway, McMaster. And with the spray RNA that they're putting on plants, so plants make mRNA vaccines, right? Down in Riverside in California, we are all about to become mRNA'd. And everyone needs to know that because this RNA can rewrite your genetic programming. Okay, it can impact your DNA to produce new proteins, new materials. It becomes intercalated into our genetics. It is not benign. We will all be producing these new novel proteins like spike. So nobody is going to be able to say no. Because when we said no to the vaccines, let's say 23% of Americans said no or whatever, when we said no to that, they said, well, they'll have to eat it and breathe it. So they are now doing this. Now, what Bobby did, Secretary Kennedy, yesterday or the day before, saying we're stopping the funding of 22 mRNA technologies in the pipes. There will be no government funding. That's huge. That is huge because this mRNA technology is a genetic disaster. Now, we have to appreciate that anything that can produce a spike protein is toxic. So there are so many battles we can have. So people say, well, gosh, Johnny and Michelle are just depressing us to heck. What can we do? If we stick to organic, regenerative food and farming, that's a huge step, just right there. Where you spend your money matters. My friend Jeffrey Smith, who is the one who taught me about GMOs and pesticides through his book in like 2003, Seed of Deception, there's an economic tipping point of 5%. If 5%, if companies see a 5% shift in organics, they shift to organic. So there are ways to get around this, to educate yourself and to support organic regenerative food lifestyle. So getting back to the basics and rejecting a lot of these superimposed technologies, especially when you hear anything related to RNA, say no. So people cannot comply. Every person has to stand up and say, I do not comply. And also, you'll be avoiding any satanic agendas, but maybe that's a conversation we don't want to have right now, Johnny. But I want to give people some sense of hope and empowerment that they can. We can, you can.
Yeah, hope is good. Yeah, I'm so acquainted with these issues. I forget, how depressing they can be. But what I like to say is that, this is always the human condition, that we have challenges that we're up against and we do the best we can. And we shouldn't throw in the towel because things are maybe worse than they've ever been. And, this is what gives us our lives purpose. It gives our lives meaning. This is the best way that we can love ourselves and our communities. By addressing these issues. And I think that at the end of the day, that's going to be a lot, more proud of doing that, or glad we did that, than going to an extra Grateful Dead concert, if that's what it takes, is sacrificing a few of those. You talk about this mRNA tech and how it's it's ungodly. Let me, from an atheist perspective, let's reach out to that crowd. So we live in a homeostasis. We live in a delicate balance, and we see what happens when we introduce a foreign species to an ecology. How a whole collapse can happen. You lose a few keystone species, it's the end of all of it. We see this has happened in New Zealand, where they introduced all sorts of different mammals. This was like a bird paradise. There wasn't a mammal there on this island, on these islands, except for the bat. And now, we've introduced, the rabbits and the weasels and the stoats and the deer, and now so many of those those birds are extinct. Well, the same thing is happening with this GMO tech, this mRNA tech. In fact, these corporate profiteers, or these predators, they are financially incentivized. They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholder to maximize profits. And they're in their boardrooms right now considering, oh, well, maybe we could create a blight, a famine, a plague that we could profit off of. COVID was the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. And so this is what they're incentivized to do. We got to be absolutely vigilant. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we can help out, whether it's us being sustainable and not putting our money towards that system and investing in it, whether it's us speaking up and using our voice to speak out against it. And yeah, it's just, it's so important. And I don't see a better way that we can really, do something of more meaning or purpose. So,
I think, well said, Johnny. And I think maybe this would be a good way to wrap around back to GMO science. Like, what was I thinking? I'm a physician. What the heck was I thinking? This was started 2014. And that this idea of messing with God's plan, genetic engineering, was a mistake. From whether we're breathing it, eating it, injecting in us, it was a mistake, a massive global error. And can it be undone? Absolutely not. It is there. You cannot bring it back once it's released. Can we put a moratorium on it? 100%. It behooves every one of us to understand what it is that they are doing to our food, to our medications, to medication, so that we become engineered. This is an imperative. There is no regulatory body overlooking this whole process. So we need regulation. We need a moratorium on all mRNA technology, like right now, RNA technology, mRNA technology, messenger RNA. And then there needs to be regulation. It is unchecked. But then there will also be simultaneously an educational campaign about what it is and why. People need to understand about it. I am doing a talk. It's going to be on X next week. And it's a talk I put together. It's called GMOs and Geoengineering. What are the links? They are even going to, they patented it. Whether it's happening now or I don't know, but they're spraying us, geoengineering, with genetically modified organisms. And that can create ocean disaster, environmental disaster. And this is what I've been researching now. A lot of it is anecdote because you're not going to find organizations to study this because GMOs are good and geoengineering doesn't exist, right? Although I think 32 states are right now petitioning for a halt on geoengineering. Maybe it's more now. So, another conspiracy theory come to light. So I just feel that vindicated with GMO science that we're on the right track, teaching people the basics about what has befallen us and how we can least unhalt it. We could halt it. There are things people can do to reverse some of the materials, by the way. There are things that folks can do. It's not to say you can't do anything. It's hopeless once we've been infiltrating by GMOs. That's not true. You can take back your health, your well-being, your environment, but the first step is education, acknowledgement. The first thing we have to do at any time there's an issue is recognize there's an issue. That's 50% of the solution right there, is acknowledgement. So we have to learn how to undo it in terms of our own health. But, I think what gives me great hope is talking to young people like you who are so knowledgeable about this stuff. And here we are, unlikely, people to meet, but our networks continue to grow. So these conversations, we've kind of been all over the map for listeners, but these conversations are what needs to happen between people that may never have met before, or the likelihood of us meeting, I don't know. But this is how we network and we grow. So invite people to have conversation with you in a respectful way that we can share information and to continue to grow our networks, because there is strength in numbers. I believe it 100%, and we can do this. But it has to be coordinated, collaborative, and with deep love and respect, because the dark forces are amongst us. I do believe that people driving things are evil. Hurting children is evil. It's pure evil. So this is what we're dealing with, and I think there has to be a recognition that is evil out there. I had to come to grips with that, and I have. And so I am not interested in battling evil. You say, well, you just said it. I'm more interested in telling the truth. And I feel that truth telling raises my own personal vibration, because we're just all energy, right? And so the higher frequencies that I can transmit, whether it's in a podcast or meeting enlightened people like you, we vibrate higher. And anyone who listens to your work will say, yeah, this guy Johnny knows what he's talking about, and he'll vibrate higher. And because of their association with our vibrational level, this is the whole thing between like group meditation, is we all vibrate higher. When we're in the light, in truth, and high vibrational state, it's hard to touch us.
Here. Well said. Yeah. And you talk about the evil. Let's pray for Bill Gates' soul and all the souls of all these bad guys. Prayer can move mountains, and that might be the most effective thing we can do, maybe. I don't know. But
I ask that question on X every day. How do we stop the psychopathic maneuvering of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? They have more money than God. I don't know and they just keep at it. I really feel like ever since he got the pie in the face, he's just decided to take down humanity. He was shamed. One of the worst things you can do to a person is shame them. Even children, it's like the worst thing to do. He got shamed, and he's like, I'll take them all out. I'm massively rich and connected, and I have dirt on everybody. Those Epstein files, I'm taking everybody out.
I saw that meme. It's him with the pie on his face, and he says it was at this moment that he decided he was going to take everybody out. Yeah.
That's
so
too, and I said, yeah, that sounds right. Pie in the face. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, Mr. Gates.
Yeah, unbelievable, huh? Yeah, well, I just agree with what you're saying. Yeah, we just got to keep speaking the truth and doing what we can. And yeah, the parallel societies, creating a beauty everywhere. It's in our blood. It's what we've always done. And yeah, let's just be a little more natural. And yeah, things can be a whole lot better. So, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Doctor. And yeah, let's talk again real soon.
Johnny, thank you for having me.
Mahalo.